sewer.
500 means we'd like a little bit.
I want it to cost 10 grand to get it fixed.
I don't think they had
He
a,
probably,
I
some of
don't
them I
think they had a business license.
Let's try not to.
American Home Service.
But, 7 o'clock, we gotta go to work.
Let's call this meeting to order. City of North Kansas City, Missouri, regular council meeting, February 20th, 2018. Do we have a moment of silence? Tom, Tom, Tom. Comments from the public? Hearing none. Okay, consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 12.
Returning fire dispatch operations to the North Kansas City Police Department.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. At your last work session on February 6th, the council directed staff to bring forward for formal consideration the question of returning fire dispatch operations from the Kansas City Fire Department to the North Kansas City Police Department. Staff requests a motion at this time to direct staff to take the actions necessary with the Kansas City Fire Department and internally to return fire dispatch operations to the North Kansas City Police Department.
Move to approve.
Second. I've got a question.
Question?
You got a question too? No. I have a question. So on this, I see the cost involved with returning back to our dispatch.
Yes, sir.
And I noticed, and I don't have it up now because my iPad's updating, but there's a cost of like a termination fee, or we got to give them a certain amount of notice for Kansas City Fire. I think it's 60 days.
Yes, sir, that's what's required by the agreement. We might conceivably be able to do it sooner with their permission, but that's what our agreement with them
Well, I wonder if
calls for.
Kansas City wouldn't mind waiving the last 2 months' fees or whatever before we do this, because we're switching back because of the problems that we've had. And I'm just thinking out loud here that I think that, and I don't know how legally we could do it or not, but I think that they could pick up some of the cost. I mean, not the equipment that we're going to buy or whatever, but things that they can control, like their contract and things of that nature of, waiving those last 2 months. That would be
We
a
could ask,
savings.
sir, we do pay on a per-call basis.
Or something, some kind of goodwill to show, hey, we understand.
Well, I think one of the goodwill points is that they have indicated that they would probably be able to work with us to terminate this sooner
Okay.
than the 60 days. We can't guarantee that, but they verbally indicated that they would talk to their legal
And there's
about it.
there's some kind of dedicated data line or whatever that I guess we would have to take care of that to terminate that contract, right?
Yes, sir, that's not with Kansas City.
Okay.
So that does have a termination fee
Okay.
associated
Well, I just
with it.
thought I'd throw it out there,
We got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 13.
Number 13, authorization to submit an Opportunity Zone application to the Missouri Department of Economic Development.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. The Federal Tax Reform Act, recently enacted by Congress and signed by the President, included a provision that the governor of each state may nominate certain census tracts as opportunity zones. North Kansas City Destination Developers, the master developer of One North, has requested that the city submit to the Missouri Department of Economic Development a proposal to nominate the census tract in which One North lies as an opportunity zone. If you look at the map that is included with your materials, all of the city of North Kansas City is located within the census tract that includes One North. So if the council approves this action tonight, it'll be approving it not only for the area where One North is, but for the entire city of North Kansas City. In doing so, then, any developer who developed in the city in the future, if the city is designated an opportunity zone, could reduce its tax liability for developing in the city. City's financial advisor has indicated that, based upon his research, there doesn't appear to be any downside to our applying to be designated as an opportunity zone. It is a very competitive process. If the council approves it tonight, then the next step would be to try to get the governor to nominate our census tract. So certainly it wouldn't be a guarantee, but that the first step would be for us to submit an application in order to do so. Provided some information about opportunity zones from the Department of Economic Development website and also the criteria. We have begun working with the One North developer to put together an application based upon the proposal points that are listed in your packet. The developer's legal counsel from One North is here. If you have any questions of him as to why the developer from there is asking that the city take this action. So at this point, staff would request a motion to direct staff to submit an opportunity zone proposal to the Department of Economic Development. And then if you do that, then we would work with the master developer of One North to craft a good proposal to the department by the deadline, which is March 2nd.
When you're saying reducing the tax liability, what kind of tax are we talking about? Is it property taxes? Is it, what, can you expound on that a little bit?
So Mr. Abbott, do you want to comment on that?
Hi, Mark Abbott with Polsinelli, counsel for the developer of One North. The cities, this would have zero financial impact on the city as a government. No sales taxes, no property taxes would be affected. It's the tax that the investor or the developer would pay on the gain of their property.
Okay.
So just like 1031, where you can do with property sales, a 1031 exchange, it's a way to defer the tax that you would, if you buy a property for $10 and you sell it for $100, you have to pay tax on $90 because that was your gain. So as with 1031, if you reinvest that money, you can defer, you can push off paying your taxes till sometime later down the road. With federal opportunity zones, not only can you defer paying your taxes, but you can ultimately reduce the taxes that you would have to pay, the income taxes, not city taxes, the income taxes that you would have to pay in the end. So,
Thank you, that's
and
great
that applies to
information.
any project, not just One North. So it's a great way to attract other dollars to invest in North Kansas City.
So that does cover the whole boundary of North Kansas City, though, correct?
Yes, it does. The entire, the city is located entirely within
Okay.
the census tract.
Thank you for the information.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Number 14, license agreement at 1828 Swift, additional city surveillance camera, bill number 7275, ordinance number 9072.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on our city councilor, Tom Barzee.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, before you is an ordinance that, if approved, would authorize and allow us, the city, to enter into a license agreement with Northtown Devco. This is kind of a backwards license agreement. We're requesting at this time so that we can put a surveillance camera in the on the southwest corner of the roof of the 1828 Swift building. That's where Northtown Devco has its headquarters. That's a 4-story building. And it's not actually mounted into the roof. It's mounted on a heavy platform, if you will, the camera. It can be rotated and used. It's like our other cameras that we have that we're using throughout the city. But this does, if passed, it allows them, number one, to revoke the license agreement at any time, just like it's an in fact, I drafted the license agreement because they wanted it just like the ones we use with them. It requires us to provide insurance. It requires us to indemnify them if something is damaged on the property, et cetera. But it would be used for purposes that we use these other cameras, and that is to look especially to the south and the west of of that building. There's a drawing inside attached to the indemnification agreement itself, and it's shaded in generally where that camera will be located. We use conduit to run the wire, some existing conduit to run the wire down through the building so that it can be connected to our fiber optic network and used for, again, surveillance purposes.
I read through the license agreement, and it didn't see, there's no cost to this, right, for us? It's just they're allowing us to do it.
That is correct. There's no cost other than, things that we're already paying for and buying having the equipment, which
to
is
put
my
on.
understanding you've budgeted, et cetera. So, but there's no cost or fee being paid to Northtown Devco. It's our indemnification and our agreement to hold them harmless if something happens.
Sure, and I appreciate them allowing us to do that. That's going to help, I'm sure.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Northtown Devco regarding placement of city equipment on roof of property located at 1828 Swift, owned by Northtown Devco in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7275 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9072.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Northtown Devco regarding placement of city equipment on roof of property located at 1828 Swift, owned by Northtown Devco in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
Is this a movable camera, like the police can control and know where it goes? Okay.
It is a pan-tilt zoom, yes.
Whatever that's called. this
Yes,
part,
we can,
okay.
we can spin it anywhere we need to. It'll give us about 180 degrees of coverage. So we'll be able to see everything in that lot immediately south of the 1828 Swift building, including the area that the city is leasing, I guess, from them. It'll give us the ability to see the front door of Paul and Jack's, a different perspective on Neon Wild, and the south end of Calibration. So it'll give us a good perspective of that area that we don't currently have.
Okay, great.
Number 15, indemnity agreement for Snake Saturday parking lots, resolution number 18009.
Eric?
Thanks, sir. I'll call Mr. Barzee.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, before you also is a resolution that, if approved, would authorize the mayor to sign two documents. One is an indemnity agreement with Northtown Devco, and the other is a letter indemnity agreement between the city, Northland Festivals, and Northtown Devco. This is something that we have, they're similar, although the insurance numbers have changed over the years. These documents are ones that we execute each year. It's the only fee that Northtown, if you want to call it a fee, that Northtown Devco charges us. In other words, us agreeing to indemnify them to use their various parking lots. I might add, we are using the same parking lot that we've used in prior years. We modified, there was some talk of eliminating the eastern portion of that parking lot, but that has not come to fruition at this point, and so it'll be the use of that same parking lot that the city has used for a number of years in conjunction with Snake Saturday Parade.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 16, MoDOT right-of-way relinquishment agreement, bill number 7273, ordinance number 9070.
Eric?
Thanks, sir. I'll call Mr. Barzee.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if you'll recall, and not if you recall, I'm sure you're aware of, down at the end, the far eastern corner, be the northeastern corner, if you will, of the city's redevelopment area, adjacent to where Habco used to sit, that what's been cleaned up. As you'll know right now, there's like 3 little entrances that go into Railroad Avenue. We're going to clean those up. We're going to bring Railroad Avenue out at one spot, and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission owns that property. They're willing to relinquish that property, which therefore there's a survey attached that shows the area that we will be getting from MoDOT. Therefore, that would allow us, the city, to use that property as part of its redevelopment. I might add that the lion's share of that property will undoubtedly be signed over to Burger King. And as you'll recall, our agreement with them is they pay us per square foot of property that is transferred to them. And so this is step number 1. Just so you know, the road relinquishment agreement, and then if approved, signed by MoDOT, then hopefully just in the next couple of weeks or so, I will bring back to you another ordinance, and that will be authorizing the acceptance of their quitclaim deed to the city. This is very similar to what we did down at 16th Avenue, okay, as part of this development, as well as what we call the notch piece of property adjacent to and abutting the exit ramp coming off of southbound I-29 at Armour Road. There was a little piece of property we acquired in both instances. The first step was for you to approve this relinquishment agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission. Be glad to answer any questions you might have.
We'll get a quick claim on that, and we really won't be transfer of any money, will there?
No, we will not. And it will be just a quitclaim deed. That is correct.
First reading.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance approving road relinquishment agreement between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for certain property generally located at or near the intersection of Armour Road and Railroad Avenue.
I move that bill number 7273 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9070.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
An ordinance approving road relinquishment agreement between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for certain property generally located at or near the intersection of Armour Road and Railroad Avenue.
Okay. Number 17.
Number 17, First Amendment to the Facility Operating and Cooperative Agreement with YMCA. Bill number 7274, ordinance number 9071.
Eric?
Thanks, sir. The city's agreement with YMCA requires the wire to provide a budget for the North Kansas City YMCA at least 30 days in advance of the beginning of the year. So that would be sometime in December before the beginning of the calendar year, which serves as the fiscal year. The Y advises that its normal schedule for budget preparation and authorization by its board is that that occurs in January of the budget year. They have asked if we might have a minor amendment to our agreement with them, changing the language of the agreement to make the deadline at the end of January. Staff has no objections to that. So a First Amendment to the Facility Operating and Cooperative Agreement has been drawn up for your consideration accordingly.
First reading.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
An ordinance approving and adopting First Amendment addenda to Facility Operating and Cooperative Agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and the Young Men's Christian Association of Greater Kansas City.
I move that bill number 7274 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9071.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. All right, we got to call the roll.
Call the roll. Uh-oh.
Zach, did you do the second?
I did.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
An ordinance approving and adopting First Amendment addenda to Facility Operating and Cooperative Agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and the Young Men's Christian Association of Greater Kansas City. Approving accounts due and payable by the city through February 16th, 2018. Bill number 7276, ordinance number 9073.
First reading.
Second.
Aye.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through February 16th, 2018.
I move that bill number 7276 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9073.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through February 16th, 2018.
Thank you, sir. In addition to the upcoming city items of note report in your packet, we have 3 reports regarding the YMCA. One is the financial report for 2017. In 2017, the Y had an operating deficit of about $222,000. With a deficit of that amount and adding in the amount that we pay for them to manage the facility, our total expenditures for the year for the operation of the Y were approximately $515,000. And then in fiscal year 2018, or in calendar year 2018, the Y has provided a budget for that, and they are showing a projected deficit of almost exactly the same amount as this previous year, $219,000. So we would expect, assuming that that is met, that our total expenditures for next year would be in the same neighborhood as this year, probably a little bit over $500,000. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Nothing this evening, sir.
Nothing.
Nothing.
I just say stay safe. It's weather.
She said. Okay.
Okay, well, I'll pick up the slack here then. No. Just a couple of things. I want to thank our street crews out there today that did a great job on the streets, walking home from the bus stop. I mean, I walked in the street, and they were great. So kudos to the street crews. Let's see, and I wanted to thank Eric for a response on a couple of questions that I had about the parking lot there at 25th and, 25th and Iron. So Eric, thank you for getting back to me. Passed down your information to the resident that was concerned about it, and she was very pleased. So I wanted to do that. One question that I forgot to ask on our switching back from Kansas City to North Kansas City. I know in Kansas City they had the thing where they could locate each truck where it's at, like a GPS thing. Chief, is that right? And will we lose that? Will we have any way to tell like where our trucks are at a certain time?
We're going to lose that. That's part of the service provided with their CAD is the automatic vehicle locators.
Okay. All right. That answers that question. And the final question is for Pat. I mentioned it to you and Chris. 23rd and Burlington, you said that was a MoDOT issue. There's a big pothole in the intersection. Have you all contacted MoDOT, and have they responded at all on this?
We did contact them. I think it was the day that you told us, but I will get back with them and see.
Yeah, just to see if we could
Yeah.
find an ETA, just to let that person know, so.
Will do.
Go ahead. That's it.
Well, the only thing I got, I appreciate the street crews too. Been down 24th Street several times. I just looked at the calendar, it's 18 days to next Saturday. So we got to work on the weather a little bit, whoever's in charge of that.
Exactly.
Oh, Beamer is. He just pointed at you, Beamer. That's all I have.
I'd just like to reiterate big thanks to the street crews for keeping the streets moving along and free of the ice and hazardous driving. And a lot of times I recall on days like this, the police activity, not always, but most of the time would increase quite a bit on a day like this. So I imagine it would had a pretty busy day, although it doesn't always work that way. And big thank you to them also. And I was looking at the annual report of the police department, and on the crashes, which we used to call motor vehicle accidents, our city had a total of, I think, if my granddaughter's arithmetic level is right, 735 crashes total in the city. I remember when we had over 1,200 a year annually. And I think at one time we even had over 1,400 until we put in the islands there on Swift, just to the west side of the islands on Armour, just to the west side of Swift. I think that reduced a lot of accidents or crashes, as you say today, at that time. But I think that's quite a amazing number to decrease like that many. So traffic unit seems to be doing quite well in that respect. There are probably other factors is more, but by the same token, I'm sure there's more vehicles traveling out here. The population is greater than what it was 30, 40 years ago, which would increase the number of vehicles coming on the roads. So that's really, when you look at it in that perspective, that's quite an accomplishment. I think that's all I have tonight.
I don't have nothing. 22.
Consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute 610.0212.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.